My dad was really raised on sports. When he was a kid, he played a lot of hockey. He played baseball, obviously, in the neighborhood. They'd play what they called pickup games. They'd find vacant lots, get together, and they'd get their local team and play other neighborhood teams. And I think that's where the basis of Charlie Brown and his neighborhood baseball games came from, was my dad's childhood. And then as he grew up, got married, and had his 5 kids, then he obviously would observe what the kids were doing. And we were a very active family. We had football games, played every Thanksgiving and Christmas. He had a tennis court at our house. He had a 4-hole golf course at the house. We played golf.
Throughout the strip, the Peanuts characters played an awful lot of different sports at some time. Sometimes it was all the kids playing, sometimes it was just one of Snoopy's flights of fancy, but you had baseball, football, hockey, tennis, motocross, basketball, golf, swimming, bowling, fishing, boxing, roller derby, and chariot racing. So really, they covered about as wide a spectrum as you could expect.
I'd been racing motorcycles since pretty much 70, 71, and my dad had obviously heard the motorcycle every morning running around the property, and he showed some interest in the sport, and he ended up traveling to 3 of my races and watched me race. And he was a great observer, so no matter what it was, whether it be motocross or tennis or golf, he would just simply observe the sport, take in what he thought was humorous about it all, and then put that in the comic strip. And I think the fascinating thing was, by simply watching 3 motorcycle races, he ended up taking all that he observed from those days and summarized it in basically a week-long series of 5 daily strips. In Joe Motocross's endeavors, if you read the strips, basically there's one where he comes back and he's tangled up in a fence and everything, where he's crashed and gone through the fence. There's one where he comes back beaten, broken, bloodied, but he's won his trophy. And he pretty much hit it right on the head. He ended up having, what motocross is all about, why we do it, what pain and suffering the kids go through that do this. And each of those 5 panels kind of summarizes up what it's all about.
Your Good Sport Charlie Brown aired in October of 1975. Now, Peanuts ran from 1950 to 2000 in terms of original strips. 50 years, and 75 is dead in the center of that. There are certain individual scenes in the Good Sport special that come specifically from the strip. Snoopy destroying his racket in various ways when things don't go quite his way comes directly from an individual Sunday strip, but much of it was original for the special.
All of the specials were written by Charles Schulz himself. He would take some of the incidents and gags from the strips and incorporate them into the half-hour scenarios of the specials, and made them really original for the specials. Even when he takes a reference from a gag from a strip, it's almost like an homage or a tip of the hat to the strip. It doesn't feel like he's reusing something.
Hey, Charlie Brown, does that mean you're not interested in a little place kicking?
Pretty much 10 years after Christmas, he'd had obviously the tremendous hit of Christmas, Pumpkin, and Thanksgiving, and they were looking for something new to do. And my dad was always one to really look at what was kind of cutting edge at the time. And motocross had really just come on the public's awareness in 69, 70. It had come over from Europe as a form of sport that was huge over there in Europe. It just hit America, and he was fascinated by it.
For a lot of people, Peanuts may have been their very first exposure to motocross. We look at it now and we say, oh, it's motocross. We see that on ESPN, we see that wherever. But then it was, hey, what is this motorcycle racing on bumpy roads thing going on?
Hiya, gang! Let me give you a flash on what's new. It's called motocross. Motocross? It's the sport that's sweeping the nation.
This would have been a bike that the Masked Marvel and Charlie Brown were going against. This is a 1975 Honda CR125, which was extremely popular in the day. Almost all the kids in the 125 class are pretty much riding this or the Suzuki. Well, Snoopy is the Masked Marvel. He had the trick bike. He was the one that had the fancy wheels that had spokes, twin exhaust, 4-stroke, I believe, a lot of power. Poor Charlie Brown, since he got the discount model, he had the solid wheels, kind of bent frame, bent forks, rigid suspension, and yet he still came through for the victory. And this is Joe Motocross. Joe Motocross has come out of the comic strip from 1975 in February, and he's dressed in appropriate garb. Back in 75, we wore open-face helmets, Carrera ski goggles instead of the motocross goggles. We had high-point boots that are replicated authentically here, leather pants, which was the clothing of the day, very hot wool t-shirts, Jaffa Mama chest protector, and of course we always had our trusty pit person with us holding the pit board, telling you what place you were in as you came by every single lap. So Snoopy's all decked out, he's ready to go.
Masked Marvel? Yo there, Masked Marvel!
Back in 1975, we lived on what was called the coffee grounds back then. We had 28 acres, and on that 28 acres were a number of sports facilities. We had the baseball field, we had the tennis court, and my dad had a private 4-hole golf course. Well, anyone that rides motorcycles knows that the dream of every motorcycle rider is to be able to ride a dirt bike on a golf course. So I would sneak out in the evenings, get my dirt bike on the uphills at the golf course, and practice wheelies up and down the golf course, being sure to stay off the greens, because that would have done it in for me if I would have got caught on the greens. But the golf course was a lot of fun. And this is some of my bike collection I've saved from over the years, from the early days of the 70s. And this is my favorite bike collection. This is a 1971 AJS 250 Stormer. Came out of England in the early 70s. And this is exactly like the bike that I was riding on my dad's golf course back in 71, practicing wheelies and so forth. The pride of my collection. It's brand spanking new, never been started. And took a long time to find this one.
Come on, big brother. Don't let us down. You can do it. I know you can do it. I don't think you can do it.
Well, I think the great thing about Your Good Sport Charlie Brown is, in fact, that Charlie Brown finally ends up becoming a winner. And people typically kind of associate Charlie Brown as this poor loser, and he's never going to get to kick a football, never going to do anything else.
I love seeing Charlie Brown in this particular video winning. And that moment where we see his smile, it's a genuine, authentic moment. You can see he's really enjoying it.
You won, Charlie Brown! You won! You get the prize!
Poor Charlie Brown at the end of Your Good Sport Charlie Brown raced his heart out, coming to the finish line expecting to win these tickets to the Pro Bowl thing, and they couldn't get him, so he ends up winning the 5 free haircuts.
Haircuts?
Little did everybody know that Charlie Brown's father was a barber, and in fact he gets haircuts all the time.
That's classic Schultz, because even though he wins, he didn't win anything. You know, he sort of lost in terms of what the prize was.
He thinks he's going to be the winner, and things end up going sour on him at the end. It's been the story of his life throughout. But I think what people don't realize is that that's the fantastic thing about Charlie Brown, is that he has the ability to keep coming back and trying, that he is the optimist. He knows that eventually things will pay off for him, and eventually things do.
Don't feel too bad, Charlie Brown. Winning the big prize isn't the important thing. What matters is that you tried your best. And by doing your best, you beat them all. You came in first, Charlie Brown.
So it was wonderful to enjoy his moment of victory, but no surprise that Charles Schultz put us back on the pitcher's mound with Charlie Brown. There we are again, and there goes that pitch, and whap. In a way, it's a gift, because we like to know that Charlie Brown keeps on persevering no matter what. Charlie Brown has learned how to lose with dignity. He looks at himself and he says, it's not about the score on the board, the win or the loss. He doesn't blame anybody. Taking responsibility, perseverance, those are 2 qualities of a real hero.
Even though he's lost 1,000 checker games in a row and 900 baseball games and so forth, he's not about to say, I'm done with this sport. He's the first one to show up at the baseball field and start working on it every spring. He's the one that stands out in the rain, wondering where everybody went. He's not about to give up.
Even if he went in every time knowing he was going to lose, I think he would still play, because he has a love of the game, he has heart. And the way I know this is Charlie Brown's favorite baseball player. He talks about him a lot in the strip, Joe Slobotnik. Now, while other people's favorite players are getting on the All-Star team, falling into the Hall of Fame, Joe Slobotnik, he gets hit down to the minors. So he's not a great player. So why does Charlie Brown love him? Obviously because he keeps playing the game despite not being a great player. It's that heart that I'm sure Charlie Brown recognizes in himself.
Charles Schultz gave us a chance to see the dilemmas that Charlie Brown faced, and we'd watch it unfold as we read the strip, and the best part of it was Charles Schultz didn't solve the dilemma for us. He was really clever to go ahead and put it on the playing field, because the playing field is an analogy for life. It's the business world, it's the educational world, it's the marketplace. So when our kids play sports, when they have the chance to be on a playing field, we're giving them a chance to learn real life lessons, to learn things they need to learn. I would hope Charlie Brown's mother never said to him, so here's what you should have done. It was far richer that Charles Schultz let the kids work it out.
You really, really felt for Charlie Brown. You really felt for the other characters, and Snoopy was funny. And the way that they did it was an excellent, excellent translation of the strip, and you could relate to these characters, and that's really what it's all about.
The characters are full of fears and doubts and joys and happiness and frustration that other people don't see the world exactly like they do. And I don't know about anybody else out there, but I'm full of fears and doubts and joys and happiness and frustrations. So I identify pretty strongly.
Most of us lose a whole lot more than we ever win. And you can say that about almost any sport, that you have to really learn how to put up with losing as part of life, and as part of life from business world all the way down to the ball field. And I think that's where Dad draws upon, that Charlie Brown really is in all of us, and that all of us know that we're gonna lose, and we're gonna lose a lot more than we're ever gonna win. So suck it up and put up with it.